Imagine there's a code, a cosmic code, that if you understood it, you could use it to accomplish your goals, have more fun, live a more interesting life, and achieve more easily your mission. It involves something you would never expect, the 4 elements of nature. You're about to discover that nature's fire, air, water, and earth show us that code in terms that we can all understand. The ancients knew about this code, this 4-element pattern. Unfortunately, knowledge about this has been lost to us. The imbalance, chaos, anxiety, and stress of our lives will be lessened as we see things with a 4-element perspective. We are suffering because the ancient wisdom is not present in our lives. At the onset of this 4-element story, we need to know there is an order to the 4. Fire, showing up as nature's sun, is up top. Earth, the hardness under our feet, is at the bottom. Fire and earth are the most polar and represent the most ancient of cosmic opposites. Air and water come next. They are secondary opposites. Picture it like this. Air is composed of more fire, bound with lesser earth. Water is more earth, joined with lesser amounts of fire. And hence we have that order: fire, air, water, and earth.
The increased chaos and imbalance of today's world is very palpable to most people. We love our technologies, but know that something is not quite right. We're becoming lazy, getting fat, and don't engage the natural world much either.
I'm Dr. Howard Walsdorf. I'm a holistic chiropractor here in Syracuse, New York, and for over 30 years I've been helping people with a way of thinking, living, and healing revolved around the 4 elements. We're not sure how to create a reasonable, unstressing balance in our lives. The answer to this dilemma we've gotten ourselves into might best be revealed as we come to understand a balance that we each make between the modern and the primitive poles or ideals of our life. The primitive ideal pushes us to notice and appreciate nature, its beauty, its cycles, its productive balance.
The modern ideal is that ever new technologies will make us happy. The chaos and imbalance of our collective lives is a consequence of not feeling the urgency of this balancing act. Our smartphones, and very much all those other devices of our modern era, have given us many of the pleasures of our life. But with that said, we know that there is something deep that is out of balance. And that's where the 4 elements come in. At the primitive most core of nature are these 4 elements. Before long, you'll be able to use this code to establish a healthy rhythm in your life, become more physically engaged and spiritually inspired by the world around you.
I believe that it was Woody Allen who once joked, he said, "I think I'm at 2 with nature." And I find that that's it's humorous, and it's also perhaps insightful as to the way that many people think about the natural world. They're kind of conflicted about whether it's a threat or something we need. Maybe perhaps another goal could be to be at one with the elements, to become more at one with the elements, let's say, to move in that direction. Because today it seems, in the ancient and perennial world, you had earth, air, fire, and water. It's almost as if now smog is our new air, that concrete is our new kind of form of earth, that plastic is a kind of new water. You know, it's a malleable substance, but it's everywhere in the ocean, threat to marine life and to our own life. And that fire is, well, I don't know, silicon. It's something, you know, technological, and we rarely see fire unless you're camping, or a lot of stoves, you don't see it, or we don't light our candles at the end of the day. So maybe bringing these elements back into our everyday world is a start. Become aware of the soil, of the air, of the literally the flame and the fire, or the water. So bringing the elements back into our everyday experience, they're both extraordinary in terms of their their qualities, in terms of their effects on the world. They've had a huge effect on our cultural, intellectual, and artistic and philosophical histories, but they're also everyday, they're ordinary. And I think remember that, recalling that is and can be helpful to us.
It's important to understand, in some sense, what we get from 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we recall that the goal here is to understand the role that these numbers play as the basis for the principles that govern nearly everything.
Each of these 4 elements relate to the geometry of each of these 4 numbers. And we're going to start with the number 1. And so we have the circle of oneness. This circle is something we use symbolically to illustrate an all-unifying, all-encompassing spiritual unity or oneness. Think of that oneness as being there before the Big Bang erupted and created the cosmos. And we're going to use numbers to help us get from this spiritual oneness to the physical diversity that we have today. We're going to go to the number 2 that follows 1. Now think of the geometry of 2 being a line. A line has 2 arrows at each end. Each of those arrows, as it turns out, can be thought of as going in opposite directions to the biggest big and the smallest small. Other parts of that twosome could be the spiritual and the material, the masculine and the feminine. All those opposites were born when two-ness came about. The problem of that two-ness is that in the realm of 2, everything's going in opposite directions. In order for there to be a productive universe, there had to be a way for these opposite poles, principles, to be brought together. With 3-ness, you get these opposites of yin-yang-ness coming together and creating balance. So think of the body and spirit coming together and to create mind. And for that matter, all the opposites of the human condition get brought together in our unique way that builds who we are. Another important threesome is spirit and matter. Nature is the coming together of spirit and matter. So there's certain people who see a spiritual glow to nature, and what you're seeing is really there. And we're going to see how when you divide that circle of oneness into 4 parts, you get these right angles that lock in creation. So nature, which was metaphysical, if you will, in the realm of 3, now becomes physical. And nature, which was metaphysical in 3, now becomes locked together, solid, creating that 4th element, which is earth. So with the 4th element, with number 4, you get the geometry of those right angles that are so significant in the general geometry of our life and the carpentry of our homes. So much is involved with 4.
But 4 is the starting point for being able to multiply the kinds of geometric structures that give space and space-time and so on, or the power and strength, so to speak, that it has to sustain the structures that come to be in the world.
If it's true, and there seems to be a lot of evidence accumulating that groups of 4 are central to understanding our universe, then it's possible that 4-element formulations may play a big role in understanding some of the mysteries in science today. Much of the public doesn't realize how little we understand about the universe. It's estimated that 95% of the universe is not understood. Dark matter is more prevalent than the everyday matter that we see around us. Dark energy is another mystery that we have very little understanding of. And dark matter and dark energy constitute 95% of the universe. It's possible that by considering groups of 4, that progress may be made in understanding these 2 very important unsolved problems in science. We all know that space is 3-dimensional. You need 3 numbers to specify exactly where a point in space is. But since Albert Einstein's inauguration of the theory of relativity, his special theory of relativity, we've realized that time is the 4th dimension, and that the laws of nature are best expressed as 4 relationships. We not only have the foursome of space and time, we have the foursome of momentum and energy. Energy is the fourth element for the foursome of momentum. All the equations that involve energy, force, momentum, angular momentum as well as linear momentum, all those relations are most neatly and beautifully expressed and elegantly expressed as four equations. And usually the four equations are relations that depend on space-time, the space-time point that you're talking about, the instant and the location of the object. That's perhaps the most prominent of the foursomes in physics. There are others. We have four forces in nature. We're all familiar with the gravitational force that makes objects fall to the earth. It's responsible for the fact that the earth goes around the sun, the moon goes around the earth. But there are two other forces, completely separate forces. The strong force that binds the various elements of the nucleus, called nucleons, it binds them together. And there's a fourth force called the weak force, which is responsible for the beta decay of radioactivity, the breakup of the nucleus. That's governed by the weak force. States of matter is another foursome. Sometimes you hear that there are three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. But there are really four prevalent states of matter. The plasma has to be added into that. The sun, all stars are plasmas as examples. So we have four prevalent states of matter in the universe, and that's another foursome that happens to occur in the subject of physics.
Interesting things happen as you begin to see your body in terms of the four elements. The earth element, for example, are your bones. Like earth, your bones are hard. Still, while all your bones have that earth in them, can you sense how your feet have more of it? The feet are at the very earth bottom of all your bones. And looking at those feet, can you see how each heel is its earthmost part? It's with our heels that our feet engage the ground most intensely. Here's something interesting to know. Scientists tell us that optimally, when each heel hits the ground, an electrical current is created. This electrical current travels up your leg and stimulates more bone to be made to counter the body's normal breakdown of bone. That's why postmenopausal women are especially told to walk. It's somewhat poetic. When the earth in you, your bones, engage the greater earth below you as you walk, the earth in you, those bones, become stronger. But it is more than your bones that become stronger. Even mentally, you become like earth, more sturdy. This mental and physical sturdiness is given to all who properly engage the earth principle of nature. Unfortunately, we've softened our heel strikes through the cushioning of sneakers and our other modern footwear. They're so very much different than the sandals and hard leather shoes of most humans until about 50 years ago. The irony of our times is that as little as most of us walk, we unwittingly dampen that heel strike by the softness of the shoes we wear today. Many of us are anxious in part because we are losing the sturdiness that is meant to come as we walk each day. We are becoming soft. Here's a 4-element tip. While traditional leather shoes are best, with any shoe, you can draw earth life-positive energies into you by focusing on the back half-inch of each heel as you walk. It helps to flex that foot's toes upward as the back half-inch of the heel strikes.
Now, let's move to water. Think about the way life began, as small amoeba in the ancient seas. Nourishment was carried into each by water flowing in and out of its cell. As life got bigger, channels developed to transport those nutrients throughout a larger self. Later yet in evolution, a digestive system took shape to break down food so that each cell could get its needed nutrients. Eventually, a heart would develop to pump blood, filled with those nutrients. By then, a whole circulatory system had formed, even an immune system to keep those internal waters free of parasites. And kidneys developed to filter the water circulating through those arteries and veins. And then life moved on to land. Oxygen that was dissolved in the oceans now needed lungs to draw it out of the air. The point is this: all of your organs, urinary, respiratory, digestive, immune, and cardiovascular, are an embellishment of this water element system within your body. All are ultimately about sustaining your own water element, that red river of blood within you. And literally feeding into this river is what you eat. It is with the foods you eat, the spices you use, the hot and cold beverages you might drink, that this heart-pumped river within you, your water element, is kept strong. As the four-element way of thinking is extended into the practical matter of having more energy and improving health, eating wholesome foods and drinking more wholesome beverages is clearly a smart thing to do.
Well, let's think about what water is as a chemical. Of course, it's H2O. That's one way of speaking about it. And that's the basic chemical architecture of it. But water also has a number of interesting properties. Among them is the ability of water to form what are called hydrogen bonds, that is, weak links between multiple water molecules. And that's what gives water the cohesiveness that it needs to be a fluid. Now, water can exist either as air or as liquid, after all, because we have water vapor in the air. It's the same elements, but how it's different in the liquid form is that the water is held in this extremely cohesive state of matter that we call a liquid. When it comes to how life interacts with that, remember that what's happening here is you have energy coming in the form of a sun, and that energy is being used by living things to mobilize matter to store that energy into something that can be used to power life. And one of the things that is behind that ability to mobilize matter is the cohesive, continuous environment that is water. On Earth, life must exist in water. And if you look at the limits of where life exists on the Earth, it's almost always whether water can be organized in such a way to help convey matter into living systems to enable them to capture this energy to make glucose. So water is extremely important in the ability of connecting energy with the flows of matter that go behind living systems. Where it fits into the whole four-element thing, that's a very interesting question. Because the four-element model of matter that the Greeks have bequeathed us is really motivated by a fundamental observation of what these philosophers thought life is. And the metaphor of balance was very, very important to, for example, the development of Hippocratic medicine. You had these opposing forces. You had fire versus earth and water versus air. And that metaphor for balance has carried over through into modern biology. So it's still there. It's expressed in a different way, but we're still grappling with the notion of just what that balance is. What is it that is being played off what else to be able to ensure that you have the continuity through time that characterizes a living system. Life lives in a water medium. The water is the medium whereby all the materials and all the matter that goes into creating a living system is mobilized by energy to be able to create that order. That's where water really fits in, I think.
Air as an element is space, is the force that creates open, endless space. Everything needs its elbow room, this space. And what is it that we use that gives us this elbow room? Our muscles. Muscles move us through space, air, to do the things we want to do. In the holistic way that the cosmos works, it even makes sense that the air we breathe contains oxygen, which is what muscular power requires. The way we use our muscles defines how we do what we do, how we live. If you habitually have bad posture, walk slump forward, or as many of us do, sit too much, you are not using your muscles properly. When you don't use your muscles in the way they were meant to be used, you are not honoring this air circuit of your body. Acupuncture calls this air element energy Qi. Qi is the robust, invigorating power that keeps life strong. It's what gives each of us our level of self-empowerment. We each generate this chi as we use our muscles. And indeed, staying active and having good muscle invigorative posture are all time-honored notions of how to live a healthy, robust life.
The highest of the four elements is the fire element, nature's sun. Appropriately, this highest element relates to the number 1. Did you know the sun actually radiates out a oneness energy? It happens as it fuses 4 hydrogen atoms together to create 1 atom of helium. It does this trillions of times each second, creating its light. Plants take in this energy and through the process of photosynthesis creates carbohydrates and the biochemistries of life.
And the reason I mention that is what the fire principle is about is order. So all these biochemical compounds are really this order energy that life creates to create higher order within itself. But more than that is the nervous system is an expression of this fire principle as well. So just as you have the earth being the bones of the body that end up strong at the feet, the nerves of the body are high up here, so strong in our brain. The cerebral cortex in particular is a powerful place where the fire element of life is within us as human beings. Now when we're stressed out, when we're anxious, when we're nervous, those are all expressions of the fire element not being properly used by us. So what we need to do as human beings is find ways for that nervous system, that fire element energy, to move through us unimpeded.
And I think an important pedagogical or educational development that could take off is just teaching children about the elements, because they encounter, again, not H2O initially, but water. They like to play in water. They like to play in dirt. They like to go flying. Who doesn't like to fly? The point is, it's important to not just think about the 4 elements, but to work with them, encounter them. A lot of children and a lot of adults are only dealing with iPhones and cars and computers, and it's sometimes good to kind of put those down and encounter this like original, less mediated, more kind of primal world of earth, air, fire, water, cloud, ice, snow, shadow, and to get your hands dirty, to get your feet wet, so to speak, and think about what we're doing. Think about this lineage of elemental thought, the ways that we can be sensitive to earth, air, fire, and water, but the natural world, the built world as well, because they're related. There's a story to be told, and we need to perhaps return, recover, and re-story that narrative so that it's a more ecological and inclusive history.
The 4 elements also manifest in important parts of our human condition that relate to philosophy, science, religion, and technology. So the fire element is the highest of the 4 elements, and in the same way that philosophy is the highest part of our human condition as well. Whether we know it or not, we each have a philosophy, and we're meant to have a philosophy that brings us up as opposed to down. Unfortunately today, we have more of a materialistic philosophy, an earth element kind of philosophy, as opposed to a fire element philosophy. So part of a 4 element lifestyle is to have a philosophy that has a fire element oneness concept embedded in it. Because that oneness that we're part of is meant to impel us, to inspire us to live a good life. So part of having a 4 element lifestyle is to have a good philosophy, a spiritual philosophy, if you will. The next one down is science. Science is the air element. And again, think of science as related to that intellect of air that cuts things into smaller and smaller tunuses to figure out how things work. So science is about the howness, the air element of the human condition. So science is the collective intellect, the collective air element faculty within the human condition. The water element, the whyness, is the religion, the poetics, the romance of life. That romance and poetic nature of life is tied into the water element, which is about the wideness of water's hydrogen bond that makes life possible. We all have to have a passion that the water element embellishes within us to give us the oomph and the passion to do the higher level things that we want to do. Religion is the fire element, the sun's fire element being refracted by water into the religious ethnic traditions of the human condition that make life beautiful. The earth element, technology, is how we physically manifest these scientific things that we've learned to make life more productive, more efficient. That's all part of the earth element, to be productive in a physical way through technology. And the productivity of materialism is really an earth element agency or faculty within us. That we're all meant to move upward from earth to fire. We all know that up is the direction we're meant to move. So the four element inspired lifestyle tells us that we want to move upward and realize that we're all part of a higher level oneness. This oneness of a spiritual philosophy helps us to move beyond a fractured humankind toward a higher level one. And that's what's going to make this world better as more and more people realize that the four elements can give us the key that we need to live a balanced, productive life.
So what would a four-element inspired lifestyle look like? It would be more spiritual in a natural kind of way. That's because you'd be seeing the sun, air, water, and earth as the expression of those four cosmic spiritual principles, as oneness was fractured into four parts. You would find practical ways to draw the power of each of these four into your life. You would heel strike better, perhaps forsaking those soft shoes that make up our footwear today. Besides helping to align your body parts better, you'd notice this mind-steadying earth energy to be a good antidote for the anxieties and mental stress that many feel today. You would become sturdier in body, mind, and spirit as you translated more of the earth principle into yourself with each heel strike. And the water principle's force, it would find its way into you as you understood food, spices, and herbs in deeper ways. A four-element inspired lifestyle would have you eating more wholesome foods and drinking a variety of herbal teas and other beverages that contain nature's life-positive principles. As you drank your morning's coffee, you'd get a chuckle out of realizing that coffee is our nation's herb of choice, caffeine being one of coffee's herbal principles. In the same way that air moves upward, a four-element inspired lifestyle would have you being drawn upward. We are meant to become continuously smarter as we do so, as we learn about new ideas, including these four cosmos-spanning principles. A four-element inspired lifestyle would inspire you to have a sport, martial art, a physical activity, a yoga that helped you draw air's muscular energy into you. These would help you to stay robust and filled with chi. And the fire principle, it would prod you to meditate, envision your goals, develop a philosophy, to feel the oneness light of the sun as it shines on a cool day. It is this fire principle that helps you feel part of something larger than yourself, and to maintain your idealism amidst the troubles of the world. May the four elements and their life-positive ideals, values, and energies always be strong in your life, and perhaps may they motivate you to join with others, to find ways to better balance life's principles, ideals, and energies here in this small, beautiful part of the cosmos that nature's four elements have created for us.